Okay. Who's going to kick it off? You want to kick it off this time?
Yeah, you're not wearing pants again.
You don't have to say that.
But why? I'm wearing pants. I'm wearing pants.
This is like the pantsless podcast.
Stop.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Welcome. Episode 11. We've officially gone past the 2-digit mark, which is awesome. So this podcast, we're going to kind of do more of a conversational approach, but we're going to talk about being different in life and differences in like how we are in our marriage, maybe differences in like between general groups of people, kind of like what being different means to us and how it's perceived by others. And I think this is a good segue from the Enneagrams, which now we've level set you. So whoever is watching this or knows us or whatever, you've been level set. You know who we are according to the Enneagram Institute. So there's no excuse for not following along.
Yeah. And I was thinking about this. One of the weirdest things that's come to the forefront of our marriage after starting this podcast is how hard it is for us to decide and agree on a topic of what to do for a podcast. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it should be like the easiest thing. And I guess it's like we are very different people in certain areas, or like in the way we think or the things that we do. And we're very similar in a lot of ways too. But it got me thinking, because we were having these conversations about like, what should we do with the podcast? Should we do it real casual? Should we do it real serious? Like, should we do a game? Like
our
normal stuff.
Our styles are different too.
Yeah. I mean, we have different styles, but it got me thinking about like when you're a little kid, like you're kind of growing up in this world. It's like you're trying to fit in. You're trying to be like everybody else. You're trying to be, I guess, like gray. You want to blend in. You want to be part of these big groups of people.
It's human
yeah,
nature.
I mean, it's like, so your mindset when you're young is, and it's not the same for everybody. There are people that are, different from day one and they want to be different. But it's like you're not really told from an early age, like, go against everything and be your own person. But when you become older, and now, I mean, like, looking at people that are massively successful, they're typically people that are different and they embrace being different and they run with it. And so, like, this has actually been an eye-opening thing for, like, us, because it shows just how different our brains are.
Yeah.
And when you're forced to sit down and talk, I mean, we talk all the time, but it's in the privacy of our own home.
Right.
And, like, you can say whatever you want to say, or you don't have to go on.
There's less filtration.
Well, when you're going to sit down for an hour or so,
yeah.
and you're going to be talking about something, it makes you think about, like, it just brings to light the differences in our relationship and the differences in our families and our friends and stuff like that. So I thought it would be a good topic to discuss, like what being different means to us. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
What's one of the biggest things in your life, marriage or not, where you have noticed that you tend to be different? Anything that stands out? Like in the way that you think or the way that you act? Or do you want me to go first?
I would say that's interesting. I feel like I tend to err on the side of more like childlike imagination type of things. Like it's interesting because, okay, so in a corporate setting, like in a professional setting, I honestly have a hard time, more than others, I would say, being, and I don't want to stab myself, like shoot myself in the foot here, but like I have a hard time not being myself in a corporate environment. And like, for example, when you enter into the workforce and kind of what you're taught in college, if you going with the grain of institutionalized common things that you are taught. I mean, when you go to school, the structure of school is not typically designed to foster individualism.
Right.
It's usually how can we just get as many people through the system as possible. That's, for the most part, and I'm not going to speak for everything, but for the most part, that's how, grade school to college and then into the professional workplace is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like how it's set up. Obviously there has to be some kind of streamlined thing to let as many people as possible be education or have education.
Right.
But what's interesting is, and I'm sure because the statistic is like 75% of Americans are like unhappy with what they do at work or where they do it.
Right.
I've heard. So if you think about it, like, there has to be some structure, but how stifling is that to a lot of people? And there are people that are really, really, really good at just getting into that like stream and that flow and just being like, I'm the best at not fitting it, but I'm like really good at following the rules and fitting the mold.
Yeah.
And I've learned about myself that I'm not that good at that. Like I can do it, but I find myself there's a lot of days where at the end of the day, I find myself like, okay, I went to college, and I learned about what I learned and I like what I do professionally, but I'm like, man, I just like what's really different about me, I feel like, is I can let my creative brain just go. And like, I mean, you've heard some of the things that how weird I am, right? Like, I'm a weirdo sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I come up with the weirdest things in my brain. And I'm just like, that's my brain. Like it just is there all the time. And like, what's sad is a lot of times I would say the place where I have to do that the most, where I have to like alter who I feel like I am most is in a professional setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's like, I feel like I'm different than a lot of people that I've worked with in the past, where it's like, it seems like, maybe this is just my perspective, or maybe other people have this thought where it seems like from an outsider looking in, or from somebody who's not obviously can't be another person and know what's in their brain. But I've found myself in a lot of situations looking at other people and I'm like, wow, they're like really good at their job. And they're just like really good at being really professional. And I'm over here like thinking about the weirdest things in a meeting. And I'm like, I just don't know why my brain goes to this. Like, I just want to be creative and like do something different. And like, I don't know. So I would say I'm probably more different. I don't know though, because it's hard to like survey people that might not be honest.
Like from my perspective, I think you do a pretty good job of fitting in, like blending in. But like mentally, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like from the outside, when I look at you, like you know what to do to fit in.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are in that boat.
Oh, everybody is.
It's like
everybody
weird.
Is.
Yeah.
Like speaking of, so I'm glad you brought up like college and education, because we've got 3 little kids and people have been saying, I mean, like from as young as I was and can remember, it was like the idea was you go to college and you do something and like that's where success comes from, right? And like when I think about it now, like success in like a business situation or so I have 2 degrees in advertising and retailing, and basically what it is like how to promote a business is what it is. How to present product or whatever. That's what I was formally taught. And from day one, you are taught to be an employee. Mm-hmm. Like when you go to college, unless you're going to be in the medical field or like a law something, you're taught to be an employee in the system. And thinking back on how stupid college is, if you go the route that most people do, ideally, you go to college to learn how to differentiate yourself from everybody else to succeed. Think about this for a second. You're sitting in a lecture hall full of 200 to 500 people, right? That's what ours were.
Yeah.
You're sitting in a lecture hall of 200 to 500 people, and 2 hours later, there's going to be another 500 people come in. And then 2 hours later, there's going to be another 500 people come in. Think about how ironic it is that you are paying so much money to basically learn how to be successful. And what they're teaching you is you can't be like everybody else. You have to beat everybody else. You have to be unique and different.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stand out from everybody else while you're sitting in a classroom full of 500 other people that are learning the exact same thing.
It's basically a competition.
You're sitting in a room with the competition, learning the exact same thing.
It's very interesting.
It's pointless.
I don't think it's pointless. I agree. I hear what you're saying. Like that's
the message is correct.
Yeah.
But when you look at what you're doing,
yeah,
you're training yourself right next to your competition, and they're doing the exact same thing. So it's like they're preaching, be an individual, be different, but everybody else is going to do the same thing.
Like I think there's a lot of good that comes out of it. Like I don't think it's completely pointless, but it is a little like juxtaposition to what your ultimate goal is, and the fact that you're sitting with, the person who you may be in competition with, either for a job or creating your own business or whatever.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is like, I would say like when we went to college, so we both graduated in 2010. Mm-hmm. And from what I remember, that was 10 years ago. From what I remember, I mean, we took a class together called the New Media Driver's License with Derek Maribon.
That was legit back then.
He was awesome. He was a self-employed digital marketing agency consultant. Yeah. He had a lot of like in the time, it was like not a lot of people held that title, I would say. There were probably
he was innovative.
Yeah. It was probably from like the 2000 like big .com boom. It was, he's about 10 years into it.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he had a pretty good head start. So in 2010, that was like
for the area.
Yeah. I think
like
weren't we the first class? Weren't we? Yeah, we were. We were 100%. We were the first new media driver's license.
They gave us a certificate at the end of it.
I still have it.
The new media driver's license.
I'm going to frame it.
I specifically remember during that class, one of the things they taught us was if you have a client and you are, managing their social media, when a new platform comes on, like when Twitter was released, your job as their consultant is to get on there and get their username as fast as possible so nobody else steals it. Like that was like the big thing.
It was so, I remember that.
Like
still.
Integrate your social media.
Think about how different, if he's teaching that class still, think about how different that is now versus 10 years ago. Because when we learned, it was like Twitter, Facebook, like maybe Google, like SEO and SEM. I think we learned a little bit about a little bit, like nothing,
nothing that you could do professionally.
I would say that class, if you had to review the coursework that they did 10 years ago versus today, I would say it's probably 75%, 100% uniquely different.
Right.
Don't you think so? Like for sure, Twitter is probably still similar.
No,
like,
for sure.
But Twitter, I mean. So it's amazing how fast stuff changes.
Yeah, the difference is back then, when you had a smartphone, it was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
You can get on Twitter. Yeah. You can be on, I don't even know if Foursquare was
up. I remember Foursquare.
I mean, YouTube was the big one that people were like, but nobody knew how to run a camera.
Right.
Like what we're doing right now.
Goofy, weird.
Like nobody had the ability or the knowledge to do it. It was like, you can tweet. And you can be on Facebook. And those are the two big things. And I think Facebook was still private at that point. So it was
still had to have
there's a strategy involved.
Like a college email address or whatever, I think.
But it's like, so I mean, like when we were doing that stuff, they were teaching us like what they felt was going to be important.
Yeah.
And like when I started thinking about our three kids and what I was told as I was entering college, leaving high school, entering college, and then started to think about like the workforce. One of the biggest things was like, I remember taking like tests in high school that were going to project what I should do professionally. And everybody, I mean, probably I screwed up and I should have been an engineer.
Aptitude test.
Yeah.
Is that
like,
what I hated
so
those.
I scored at like a 95% match for an industrial engineer. Like that's what I was supposed to be.
That's not surprising.
And I was like an 85% match to being a mechanical engineer. And that's what I started off doing. But for me in college, when I got to college, I remember taking, it was ME 101, Mechanical Engineering 101, and it was like AutoCAD basics.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got into that, I had taken 4 years of AutoCAD in high school. So when I got there, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I probably should have been teaching the class because I would get my stuff done so quickly that I would walk around and help the TAs teach. Like I would help the kids do it. And I'm like, it bored me so much. I quit doing mechanical engineering.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I got to do something different.
Okay, let's talk about differences right now. Your brain, when you get into that space and you get
I get bored,
I call it ADD for me. When you get bored or you're like, this is beyond
I feel like I'm wasting time.
Yes. Huge difference between you and I. I will like literally stick it out until a pandemic makes me stop. Like literally, I will stick out. Yeah. I will stick something out. I will be committed to a thing forever. Like it will take something of drastic proportions to make me stop. I don't know why. You
are driven by like approval
consistency,
from other people,
approval,
and safety.
Yeah.
And I am not.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, okay, like I probably could have been a very good mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
But I got so bored freshman year in college. I was like, holy crap. Like I remember doing calculus in college, like calculus 1, calc 2. And I was sitting in this math class and I was like, what am I doing?
Oh my God.
Like, so here's the bad part. If I would have stuck it out and just been like, okay, someday, and just to be fair, when I was at Michigan State, and by the way, this is like the worst shirt, but our kids are sleeping and I didn't want to go in the bedroom and get a different one. So I'm wearing this. When I was at Michigan State, it was like fully driven by General Motors. So like the engineering program was funded by GM.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, they were fully priming you to come work for GM and build cars. I did not know that.
Interesting.
And I was like, man, everybody was like, that's the big deal. Junior year, you go get your internship and you do your stuff at GM and then you get a job at GM. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like all the prototypes and stuff we were doing were all car parts.
Huh, I didn't know
that.
I
was like, I'm not a car guy. I don't want to do car stuff.
Yeah.
But understanding that, I was thinking it just so happened and like talking about being different. My family, like my actual mom and dad, my to a certain extent, my grandpa, which I never met, was a big outdoorsman. Mm-hmm. I remember going down to my grandparents' house when my grandma was alive, and he had a back room that was just covered in deer antlers. Like I never knew the guy, but I remember seeing all the deer antlers and seeing like the gun cabinet and stuff. And my immediate family was not into the outdoors. My uncle and my aunt wasn't really. My one uncle and my cousins were into deer hunting a little. They would go out during the firearm season.
And they lived on how many acres?
Yeah, they have like, I think it's like 10 acres.
Yeah. Something
like that. 20 acres, maybe 20.
Of like cornfield and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're like in a rural area.
Yeah.
But I never got into it until I actually was in college and I started working with some guys, like grown men, that introduced me to it. Mm-hmm. And once I was introduced to it, I was like hooked. It was just like part of who I was.
Yeah.
That is something that I didn't realize how uncommon it is in like the global United States, because like my immediate family was not hunting and fishing oriented.
Right.
My aunt and uncle had a house with like deer and turkeys and they do the stuff. So I was just like, oh, it's kind of normal. Like my hometown,
your community was
when
more,
you go there, you see people wearing camouflage.
Sure.
So that was like normal.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not normal. It's like,
well, what percentage is the, I guess United States speaking, because I know like New Zealand, there's a lot of other, like Germany, I know there's a lot of places that,
it's like,
not Germany.
It's like 5% of the population hunt.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
that's
so
including
firearms.
Wow.
So,
Are you sure?
And I'm more bow hunting oriented.
It's not 5% for bow hunting. It's 5% overall.
Hunting.
That's crazy.
So when you think about that, 20 people, one person hunts. So I'm very odd in that situation because there's a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
But there are a ton of people that do. They're just
what's
they're
the
very culturally linked.
What is the gross domestic product or whatever it is? I don't know if it's the GDP. Oh my gosh, economics class. I'm failing you right now. What is the what's the percentage of like whatever the overall gross domestic amount of money that the United States makes comes from the hunting industry or the outdoors? Because and like not including camping, like water
You're
sports,
talking
like hardcore, like
fishing is way bigger.
Harvesting animals. Because what?
It smells like one of the dogs took a shit outside the door. Do you hit that?
No.
It hits different in the podcast room.
No, smell it.
I swear to God.
Okay. Dog farts. But
so
what I'm trying to figure out is
the fishing community spends a boatload of cash.
Yeah.
Because they do it all the time.
Boatload.
They do it summer, fall, spring, winter, ice fishing. Hunting is seasonal.
Can we just circle back to the fact that you just said boatload?
Yeah, I did that on purpose.
Okay. Nice.
So yeah, I'm one of the odd people that
you're a scarce person. You're a
because
scarce crow.
I wear camouflage shoes 95% of the time.
I mean, that's just a choice. That's personal.
I love them.
I have a camel hat.
See, like I wear camouflage shoes, but I don't feel uncomfortable on it. I know people look at me weird, but I'm like, hey, I'm okay with it.
I'm a proponent for you just do you.
Yeah.
You do whatever you want to do.
See, and that's part of my personality where it was like, I'm not going to fight this. I'm just going to accept it and run with it because that's who I am.
Yeah.
You know, like I can be a little aggressive. I say foul words once in a while and it gets me in trouble probably, but that's just kind of who I am. But you know, when we're talking about, like be yourself and do something that is not like everybody else. It's ironic that we're sitting here on a podcast because podcasting is one of these things that's like, it's a very popular trend right now. Mm-hmm. People are getting better at doing this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that we were talking about, me and you, was that what can we do to differentiate ourselves? Like, what can we do to make it like successful and sustain it? Mm-hmm. And we had the conversation about like the only thing that we can provide that nobody else can is to be our true selves.
Yeah.
Like that everybody has that.
Right.
A lot of people are scared shitless to do it. Mm-hmm. So we're sitting here and this is kind of like our shot at just opening up, mm-hmm. being who we are and going with it. Like accepting that we're different.
Yeah.
Clearly it's been an interesting process so far. Like getting to this point is not easy.
Right.
And making the choice to do something like this is something that it takes dedication.
Yeah.
And from being in this pandemic situation where you and I are like together a lot now, it's like we have not always done it smoothly.
Yeah.
But it's been a good process of learning like who I am, who you are, and how we need to function together in a marriage. Mm-hmm. Because people that are in a marriage, I think, if you don't have kids, we were joking about it today. Was it today?
Yeah.
We went for a walk down a road out here in the country and we were like, what would it be like if it was just me and you? Like if we didn't have kids, if we didn't have dogs. And it was like, man.
You really, it gives you perspective into, and you know, it's kind of like the tunnel of hindsight is well lit. Like, yeah. And not saying that it's almost like you really, I mean, it's, you know, with any experience, you don't fully understand what something is going to be until you go through it. Right. I mean, you can do research, you can listen to people, you can hear it all, but until you have your own experience to pull from, you don't have that full blown picture. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's really interesting because, man, you think that like I remember thinking, you know, back in whatever point in our lives before we had kids or before we, even in college where it was like, oh man, college classes are so hard. And don't get me wrong, they can be challenging.
Yeah.
But until you have perspective on like, man, something else is a lot more challenging. It's like there's like a part of your brain that just doesn't, it's like underdeveloped where you're like not fully understanding. So, and I mean, that's just like life.
Imagine
okay, I'm
if
hitting
you
that
could
dog
go,
fart now.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It might not be a fart.
Is it poop?
I hope not.
Okay.
Yeah. Imagine if you could take your brain right now and go back.
Offended right now.
Yeah. And go back 15 years. Go back 15 years or how many years.
And like tell yourself what's happening.
Redo high school, redo college, redo all that with the brain that you have right now.
See, maybe
it would be unfair.
Maybe there's a life hack though. Because you know what? My good friend Uncle Dave Ramsey that I listen to sometimes.
Yeah.
No, he's cool. Like I pull from, okay, and this is actually ironic. He said something, and I think this actually comes from the Bible.
Probably.
Not totally sure.
He's very religious.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think this comes from the Bible. Like I'm all for it. Bible, like shit posts on Instagram, like fucking anything. I pull from a lot of different sources. I like to have a lot of data. So here's what's interesting. He said, and this is like exactly what I'm talking about. He said like I'm going to screw it up.
Seek counsel in the
multitude
of others or something.
Yeah.
Basically saying like talk to a lot of
The
people.
more people you can get information from, like the better your average thought is going to be in theory. So like what's really cool is if you take elder people who have gone through experiences.
Are you old bashing right now?
Elders.
You better watch it.
Elderlies. People who have lived more life than we have.
Senior citizens.
See, I think that's more offensive.
Why?
Because
they're senior.
Maybe they're not. Maybe they're.
Well, if you think about it in a negative way, it is.
Okay.
It's not negative.
People who are older than I am. Fair. That captures everyone.
Oh.
Okay. So people who are older than I am, if you pull from that source and then you pull from like people your age going through we need to check to see if that's poop. Or turn the fan on. No. Oh my God. Smell-o-vision? Can anyone else smell that?
I don't have pants on.
Did you fart?
No. Hold on. Keep talking. I can hear you. Keep talking.
Are you going to check for poop?
Door. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, if you pull from, your wise, wisdom-filled people,
it's just his butt.
He's right there. He's right at the door. Oh my God. Your wise people that you know and love.
His butt is right at the crack of the door.
Oh my God.
And he's just crop dusting us. It's Jack. It's our big black lab.
Why is he doing that?
Sorry about that. If you saw my boxers, I apologize.
But yeah, I think what's really interesting is it's like the more sources, and this is true to data, right? So I'm in nature for what I've done for the past
the more data points you can
years.
get, the more accurate your average.
Right. And that's what's going on right now with this pandemic.
Yeah.
They're trying to gather as much data as possible because data tells the story.
Yeah, but the data is bullshit because they're not reporting it correctly.
No, what happens is the data is bullshit when you don't have enough of a sample size. And that's where it gets dangerous because if you pull from a subset of information that is specific to one group or one area or one location, it doesn't apply to everything else. So what is interesting and what I've learned over the last 10 professional years that I've been working is the more data you can have, the more accurate your picture is. So if you think about that in your life, the more places you can pull information from, the better it will be. And something that's awesome that I heard from a guy on, I'm going to screw this up because I don't remember the guy's name, but I watch a guy named Tom Bilyeu. He has a podcast show called The Impact Theory. It's amazing. I love it so much. He does such a great job. But what he does is he basically gets so many different people who are like experts in their field and he just interviews them. He lets them talk. He asks some really relevant questions. It's really cool. But what's really interesting is there was a guy on there that basically said, like, when I believe something and I really strongly have an opinion on it, I will seek out the person or group or area of industry or whatever it is that has the opposite thought or the opposite viewpoint. And I will read books from people who have this opposite idea than I do. You know, if I have a belief, I'll find somebody who has the opposite belief and I'll literally try to learn as much as I can about that person.
Yeah.
And he said what that does is it makes me not only have a great appreciation for the other side, but it really allows me to solidify why I believe what I believe
Yeah.
and have like, not argument, because it doesn't necessarily have to be
challenges
negative.
your belief.
Yeah, you really have to, you fortify your belief system or
Yeah.
your idea of why you're really invested in something in the best way possible, because it means that you holistically understand like what you're talking about. I
Yeah.
think that's awesome. So like in life, what I've realized from my 30 and a half years of times around the sun, like it's important to not listen to one person or
Yeah.
to one source or to one thing, because it closes a lot of doors and it really shuts you out from other ideas and other perspectives. And kind of circling back to the beginning of your question, like, you know, how do you think you're different? I feel like I often don't jump into, well, this is just the way that it is. There's one right way to do it, and then there's a wrong way.
Yeah.
I often think, and I value other ways to do things and other ideas on how to do something. And, you know, I can be stubborn sometimes and I can be set in my ways and think like, okay, you know, like this is the way that I know how to do it. So that has to be the way. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not, you know, this altruistic person who's like, oh, I'm awesome. And you're not. Like, I get set in my ways. But I feel like I challenge myself, and it's important to hear what other people think and to not fully invest and believe that your way is the right way and be open to different things. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of our relationship has come from me really opening my brain up to like what I grew up and knew as a child and understood kind of from like the ages of like 1 or from whenever understanding begins, like 3 in memory, to like the age of 18, you know, I learned a lot of what I learned from being in a family unit and all that stuff. And then going to college and meeting you and meeting my peers and all these other people, it like really opened my mind up to like, oh, wow,
Right.
it's a lot different than what I've learned, or there's a lot. And that's why I think, you know, it like going to college is important for that aspect. I think probably 50-50. Like your education is important, but just being exposed to different cultures and different ideas and different thoughts and things that you don't necessarily believe or didn't believe growing up or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really important to like get that
So
overarching thing.
That's a really important thing to discuss and like to be aware of, because when we've got 3 little kids, and at some point they're either going to go to college or they're not going to go to college, or, you know, they're going to have to make choices that are going to impact their lives. And so like what you're saying is, you know, like going to college, being exposed to all these different points of view is massively important. But there's another part of it too that's like, it's like how you and I differ greatly is like, I think you find comfort in analyzing and doing things slowly and trying to convince yourself that you're doing it the right way before you do it.
Right.
Like finding the comfort because other people told you it was the right thing to do before you do it.
The support. Yeah.
Right. It's like having the social acceptance of like, if I do this, people are going to be on board with me.
Right.
And I have like almost the opposite mindset sometimes, where it's like, and I get it too, like being around people opens you up culturally. It opens up your perspective to challenge your own way of thinking. But at some point too, it's like, if you live your whole life like that, you hit a point where you might be selling yourself short.
You lose your individuality a little bit. Yeah.
It's like, that's the part of being different, where like, even if everybody's telling you what you're doing is stupid, some of the best things to ever come out of mankind history have come from people that everybody was like, this guy's a dumbass.
Yeah.
Or this chick doesn't know what she's talking about. And they just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be awesome.
Yeah.
And it's like, it makes me think about how, so the book, Grant Cardone, and you were listening to this too. He said something in his book, the 10X rule.
Yeah.
The 10X rule. It's a pretty good book. I mean, it's not anything like overly exciting, but there are some really good points. He makes this comment, and I don't even know if it's in the written book because I was listening to the audio book. But
he does a good job reading that too.
Yeah, he said he starts talking about crushing your spirit, crushing your individuality, and he said, "Have you killed your kids yet? Have you done it? Have you done it to them yet? Have you told them to sit down and shut up and stop running around? And like, have you told them to stop being who they are yet?" And it was like,
oh God,
oh shit.
Right.
I'm like, yeah. It's like, but it makes you think about something like, you know, when they get to an age where they are going to do something with their own lives, looking back on like when I went to college and some of the things that I did, like I was going off of what was in my gut, and there was nobody outside, like externally for me, saying like, that's smart.
Yeah.
Most people were like, that's stupid.
Right.
And I feel like I did a pretty good job of doing what I thought I should do. But it's hard when you don't have people that are like, go for it.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is like, you get to a point where
because that freezes me. Like I agree with
when
you there.
Someone says
it stops me from
like, and
I'll overthink it.
You and I mean, right now, like in our own marriage, we've been talking about things where like you said stuff to me and I'll admit it. I've been like, that's dumb.
Yeah.
And that impacts you greatly.
It does.
Whereas like, if you said that to me, I'd go, I don't really give a shit. What'd you think about it?
Yeah.
You know, like that's just the way that my brain functions. But if I said like, hey, I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
You're like,
I might get defensive, but like internally I'm
long-term impacts you.
Yeah.
And it does not long-term impact me. Because I've had people tell me like, oh, hunting's stupid. I'm like, I could give a shit less. I'm going to go hunting every year because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But it's like when you start talking about being different, like when is it okay to be different? When is it not okay to be different? Because when you're in a school system, if you're lucky and you get a teacher or a principal or somebody that embraces that, then you're lucky.
The system, I feel like the way that it's set up though, like the lesson plans, the structure of the day, it almost doesn't provide for, and this is kind of on public school. It's not like private school might be different.
Some of them, private schools can do that too.
I'm sure
some of them are
level,
like, there are like private, like military type schools where it's like, you don't have flexibility.
Yeah.
You're like, you do this and it's a system and it teaches you how to be successful.
And I know like, maybe it's just in sheer numbers of people who attend private schools because there's like more of a ratio to like a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-5 or what, you know what I mean? Like the ratio is less to where one teacher can spend more time with each student rather than like 1-to-30 or whatever it is. So, I mean,
zero time.
Yeah. And it might be, you know, it might just be based on sheer number. It might be just be a numbers game. But I mean, it's sad because, you know, there really isn't a lot of flexibility for, oh man, this kid really excels in science. We should really let them focus on that and explore that more because it's like, well, we have 29 other kids that we really have to get through this year and 5 of them are on the low end where they're struggling and, you know, 20 of them are in the middle and then there's 3 that are like really excelling. Like, and
if we don't hit our marks, our school's not going to get the funding they need.
It's crazy. So yeah. And I saw, oh my gosh. So there's I don't know what he is. He's a, what would you call Sadhguru? The guy who was on Tom Bilyeu's podcast. Yeah,
I don't even know what to call him.
He's
a motivational
visionary.
speaker.
Yeah, he's a motivational speaker, visionary guy. He's very cool to listen to. He gives a lot of really cool perspectives. But he made a comment one time, and I heard this, and it's like stuck with me forever.
The cultivate thing.
Yeah, he said you don't raise kids. You raise sheep. You cultivate kids. And I was like, oh my God. Like it hit me.
What did he say? He was like, I don't teach my daughter anything. Or he was like, I don't teach.
Well, his theory is basically once you subscribe to a belief, you close doors to understanding or being open to any other
Right.
thought.
You accept it as final,
Yeah. And what's crazy,
which is detrimental to people.
It's crazy because, and this is like, it's a very hard thing to wrap your brain around because, and what he says is like, everybody finds comfort in belief systems.
Oh, for
but
sure.
Belief systems are basically like, you want to tie your boat to the dock, but you want to keep rowing. Like you want to try to like row out to sea, but you want to keep anchored. And basically what that is, it's like, you're basically just treading water at that point. You're trying to stay connected to something.
And you're going nowhere.
Exactly. It's basically being on a treadmill. And he said, that's great. If you want to be on a treadmill, it's great exercise, right? Yeah. You're getting exercise, your cardiovascular, like his analogy was like your cardiovascular system is being exercised. You're staying healthy. It's great. There's a routine, there's all this stuff. But if you're truly trying to explore other things and you're trying to be open, you can't when you're tethered to a belief.
Yeah. I love that when he said, all you have to do is put down the oar or put down the paddle and untie yourself.
And just let the flow
basically
take you. Because even if you don't do a thing, you're still going to go somewhere. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, it's such a cool concept. And it's literally, you know me, I like structure. I like having a list. I love having that, like, this is what we have to do.
It's funny to me how, like, you're very structured. You're very like, this is what needs to happen to do.
Cool to think about.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about this part is like, if you feel like you are required to follow a path, follow a path or lead your children down a certain path because that's where quote unquote success is. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing that Grant Cardone said. Like, have you killed your kids yet? Have you turned them into lemmings yet?
Right.
And it's like,
it's hard to understand before you have kids.
Well, and it's like, when you get to this point, like we're not quite middle age yet, but we're to a point where we have life experience. We've worked for people. We've done things, we've had good things and bad things. We've had stressful days. We've had perspective to look back on like, boy, I wish I would have done this different. Or like, I'm really glad I did that.
Yeah.
But it's like when you hear people, if I would have heard this 20 years ago where he's like, you don't raise kids, you cultivate children. I wouldn't have comprehended any of it. But now that I'm in a place where I'm like, I can't remember who said it. It was like, when you look at your life and you go like, wow, I have so much time left in my life and I'm excited about it. When you hit a point where you start going, this is how many years left I have.
I don't like that. That's another difference between you and I.
But
like,
it's true.
I know, but
because
I don't like
I look at it as like, I've accepted that my life is finite. Like someday I'm going to die. Like everybody I know is going to be dead. And you only have a certain amount of time to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So it's like when you have that perspective and you're able to look at your own life of like, did I do myself justice being who I am? Mm-hmm. Like, did I have the balls to say the C word in a podcast last time and just be open and free to be myself?
Yeah.
Like, did you do that in your life? Or did you just make a paycheck and did you get through your life? Mm-hmm. And it's like, part of me is like, I don't care. Like, girls and Adam, I don't give a shit what you do in your life. I don't care. You do what you do that makes you happy. And do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Because there are people that are successful in everything. And there are people that are horribly unhappy doing something that they thought that they should do. Mm-hmm. So it's like, when you talk about being different and when you talk about being, what's the word? When you talk about fitting in, mm-hmm. It's like, when does that start? When should you, what is there a line? Is there a part where it's like
detrimental?
Oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard to know because I think everybody struggles with like, I want to be myself. I want to be an individual.
Right.
And sometimes it's just too late for people. So it's like, I'm glad that we're to a point now where, and I think having kids got us to this sooner than later. Not to say that other people that do not have kids can't get there.
Right.
I'm sure people have done it way before we did, but it's like, I just look at it as it's a challenge for me day to day to figure out who I am,
Mm-hmm.
like who I really am.
Yeah.
And to be in a marriage with somebody that's not like me,
Mm-hmm.
part of it is like you want people to be like you.
Yeah.
And then there's another part where it's like,
or you want to associate yourself with
like-minded
yeah.
people. And then there's a part that you need to grow to accept is that some people are not like you and you got to fucking deal with it.
Yeah.
Just accept it and deal with it. And I think part of like some of our major fights in our marriage have been like, we have been trying to make the other person
Yeah.
more like how we think they should be.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's sad because I mean, we've been together over a decade now. Doesn't seem like that, but we have. And it's like, I wonder.
It takes a long time to really kind of let that stuff iron out.
Like, what did I do to you?
Right.
Trying to make you be somebody that I liked more. And
Right.
what did you do to me that screwed us?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
well,
it's
I mean,
like,
if you think about too, 50% of people or 50% of relationships, I don't know if that's accurate still now.
Marriages end in divorce.
I can understand that because
everybody wants people to be, they want to be just like somebody else.
Yeah.
They want their spouse to be just like them.
So I have like 3 thoughts. So the first thought, my last, I have a question at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But my first thought, and I don't know, like wink at me if you're okay with me sharing that we are working with somebody on Mondays. Cool with that? Now I want to talk about it. You want to?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I never thought we should do it, but
Okay.
that's my personality.
Okay. I got the wink.
I'm in the mindset that nobody needs a therapist or a counselor.
And I'm so glad you were open. You're
in the mindset that when we are on the phone with somebody else, that it means something different.
And that's okay. Okay,
fine.
So
I do it because I love you.
I love you. So
even though I'm not a huge fan of it.
And I love you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So we started working with a therapist, like, I don't know. It was
it's not a therapist, it's a counselor.
Yeah, a counselor. Technically, I think she's a therapist. A counselor?
I thought it was just a counselor.
I'll have to look at her credentials.
Anyway, it's a normal person that calls us on our bullshit.
Yeah, she's a cool lady. We've worked with her for almost a year now. It's almost the better part of a year since August.
We talk on the phone once a week. I will admit this. I dislike the thought of counseling or a therapist because I feel like if you need somebody,
this is your 8 coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you need someone to be a part of your marriage to keep you guys in line, you probably shouldn't be married. But at the same extent, if you need someone,
what are you saying?
I'm just saying that if you need a third person, that's the way I feel. If you need a third person to make you be honest in your relationship, if that's like required.
I don't think it's making us be honest. See, that's dangerous though, because in business,
no.
Rely on others to help.
But what I'm saying
with,
is, if you are using a therapist or a counselor,
I just see it as an extra part of your team.
You're missing what I'm saying.
Okay, what are you saying?
What I'm saying is, if you are utilizing a counselor or somebody because you just do not want to be honest with yourself, then it's unneeded. I like the fact that the person we talk to is open to calling us stupid.
Yeah.
Because I think what it is what we have utilized this person to do is to give us a perspective outside of either one of ours to make our conversation go in a place where we didn't think it was going to go.
And that ties into my, I seek counsel in a multitude of sources. I don't shy away from, and I would do the same in a business setting. If we were running our own business, I would reach out to other people who have gone through things or who have experience with.
Yeah, see, I'm
basically,
I'm different like
see,
that.
That's to me, and this is a difference for me. It's almost dangerous if you believe that you know everything because.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
Or that you're not open to help.
Nobody else in this world is going to be able to tell me what's going to make me happy.
Yeah.
That lives within me.
Sure. I agree with that.
What I'm saying is if people are trying to find someone that's going to help them find happiness, they're wasting their time.
Oh, see, I fully disagree with that. Because I think
what people, they know what makes them happy. like, I think you know what makes you happy.
Some
I
people,
think you can be afraid.
some people
Sometimes you're
need
afraid
help.
to say it.
I agree. And I think
Right.
some people need help coming out of that shell. And here's what I know about you. You
I'm
are
an 8.
very good. No, you are. You're good at knowing
Yeah.
who you are and what you want. And you don't like it when someone challenges that. And
Well, see, yeah, but at the same time, who are they to challenge my happiness?
but it's not about them challenging. It's about, like, especially if you're in a relationship,
Yeah.
it's almost like, if maybe you're not, I don't know.
That's where the 50% of relationships end in divorce comes in.
Sure.
Nobody's perfect in
I've
choosing.
gained value in going or talking, and we do it on, it's all tele counseling or whatever. It's all on the phone, which has been
highly
really, really awesome.
We tried it with a local person that was not a good match for what we needed.
You need childcare. It was far away. Like the time that it took to commute or whatever, it was insane.
Virtual counseling,
it's
where
awesome.
you have when you talk to someone over the phone and you make a schedule, I would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Because going the other route when you have 3 kids and it's like,
it's crazy because a lot of people probably are not open to that, but it's
aware
just so new. Yeah, it might be just such a new thing, but it really helps. So I appreciate that. I know that it's not easy to, open yourself up like that and to accept somebody who doesn't fully know you or who is in a relationship, to hear, to have them give you an opinion or advice on, like, okay, well, how much do you truly understand about what's going on? Right. So, and not to spend too much time on this, but it's helpful
it's helpful to have someone that does not know you,
but unbiased.
Yeah, it's about as unbiased as you can get, because they don't even know, like, who you are, what you look like,
exactly.
They're just looking at things and they're going, that doesn't make sense.
Or here's my perspective and here's why.
And I'm not saying that everybody that does this or offers this service is qualified.
Sure.
But the person that we selected had what I would consider their credentials that I pay attention when they talk.
Yeah. Okay, so I legitimately forgot why I started to talk about this in the first place. But the few things that I was trying to bring up was basically, it's helpful because everybody has differences in a marriage. Yeah. I would say that if there are people in the world who don't have differences or have not had an argument or haven't been,
what we were doing was we were talking about me trying to make you who I wanted you to be, and you trying to make me who you wanted me to be.
I feel like
what the implications of that.
I feel like that's really fair,
because we're different people.
Yeah, and I feel like that's really fair. And I think after, what was it? You heard something somewhere, and I don't remember if this is. You might not be able to cite this source, but it was like couples who hit like the 10-year mark or something like that.
Most divorces hit at like around 8 years.
Yeah.
And if you make it to like 11, you'll be married the rest of your life.
Yeah, like statistically, if you go past...
we're screwed. We're in it for the long haul now.
Hey, baby. So statistically, if you go past like 10 years, you're probably going to, like, statistically, you're going to stay married for a longer period of time.
Right.
But like, it's just so common to have differences and to maybe not know how to work through them. And that's where I seek value, or I gain value in, like, I don't know everything. Right. I'm okay opening myself up to like other people and having different opinions and different ideas to maybe helping me understand, like, I might not be doing something correctly. I might need to change my thought, or I might need to change my actions on, what could I be doing better? Or what am I not doing really just good?
Your perspective right on
really
things.
Well.
The funny thing is, the more I grow and become older, the more, like, I get bored. Like, I talked about the mechanical engineering thing, and I was like, oh, this is boring. I get bored seeing people that are slightly different than I am. I probably seek people to, like, have relationships with people that are just like me. Like, I have a friend that lives out west that is very similar to me, like, in every aspect. Besides, he's a big liberal and I'm kind of more Republican. I don't know. But, like, other than that, we get along like we're brothers when we hang out. It's very natural. It's very fun. But outside of that, I look to like listen to people, talk to people that are so different from me that it's like, it just piques my interest.
Yeah.
But when I was young and like when we were dating and we weren't married, it was like everything was about what can I do to be appealing? Like, what can I do to change myself to make myself be appealing to other people?
Yeah.
And now it's like, I think the good thing about the younger generation is that they are like open. So this is where it's weird. They're open to being quote unquote different. But when they all do it, they're not different. They're all the same.
Fair.
So it's like you get into this thing and it's like when I was, God, I'm going to date myself. When I was young, like the different kids were like the skateboard kids. They were like the punk kids. They were like, oh, we're individuals. But
yeah, that's true.
They were all exactly the same.
Right.
So it's like you get into this thing where you're telling yourself, oh, I'm going to be different. I'm going to do like, so today, and not to say it's not cool. I wish not, if I had cash to do it, I'd probably do it. It's like people that have like full sleeve tattoos. They're like, oh, I'm a rebel. I'm different. Well, when you look at all the people that are doing the exact same thing, you're just a part of a group. So what I'm saying is like, how do you truly figure out who you are? Because like when we started doing this podcast and when like even yesterday, up until like 3 hours ago, I didn't know what we were going to talk about. We were like, fuck, this is hard. Like, what are we going to talk about? Like part of it's like,
because you want to stay relevant.
Yeah.
You want to talk about things that other people want to hear, but also we have to stay true to ourselves.
Yeah.
And from the beginning of this podcast, we were like, this is for us.
Right.
We're going to just do it.
And part of it too is like, we're not dumb. Like we know how Google works. We know how SEO and SEM works. Like we could put out a coronavirus podcast every day and we would be getting views.
Right.
We know that.
But is that
that's
morally
not
and
what we're
ethically
doing.
correct? Yeah.
So, we're talking about like, do we just do a podcast and like just so our family can check in? Or do we try to do it so like, SEO purposes and like the title's good? And what it comes down to is like, that is the definition of being different. Because different to me, like if I had a podcast that was just for me, it would be like I'd talk about bow hunting, I'd talk about weird like audio and video and photo stuff, and I'd talk about how unhealthy I am and how much I love Chick-fil-A. Like that would be my podcast. Don't. I shouldn't have said
Why
that.
would you?
Sorry. But like for you, it's totally different. And some of the stuff you do, I'm like deep down in my soul, I'm like, that's kind of dumb. And you look at me and you're like, you're wasting your time doing stupid stuff.
But that's why we make such a good team.
So going forward, I think this year and this pandemic for me has taught me to stop being such a judgmental dick and accept people.
Oh,
it really has. Like accept people for who they are and help them be that person.
Okay.
Like it really, I mean, like help them be the person that they are and don't say a word to them about something you don't like. Because even though you don't like it, tough shit. It's not your life to judge. It's fair. Like you're not in control of that.
See, and I feel like if you base that action on the law of attraction.
Yeah.
If you're putting that out, you'll get that in return. Yeah. That's the theory. Now, a lot of people say that is it works. If you think about something like that, it will come back to you. And if you're constantly thinking negativity or you're thinking about things that are going to harm you or whatever, like that's what you will get. I can understand that. Like, I feel like I subscribe to that thought. Yeah. So, okay. I have like 2 or 3 follow-up things. The first, we talked about this already. So I feel like I'm more open to therapy or like not even therapy, but counseling, talking. It doesn't even have to be like a paid person, just like opening myself up to other opinions. Yeah. But I also appreciate that you are so steadfast in like what you believe. And I feel like that's what attracted me to you in the beginning, because I was somebody who was more like, what should I think about?
Do you think our counselor hates it when I argue with them?
No, I don't think so at all. I think
because I have flat out called them out. And I'm like, I think this is dumb.
No, I don't think so. I feel like that's probably us. I mean, that obviously gives them probably insight into like how to psychoanalyze you, but also, I mean, it's a trait that's not a bad thing. I wish I had
It's just who
more
I
of
am.
that. Honestly, I feel like that's why I was
Sorry,
so
I
attracted.
interrupted you.
No, it's okay.
I interrupted
It's
you.
okay. I feel like that is partially what attracted me to you because, like, you know, they say like opposites attract.
Yeah.
I feel like I was more like timid or not super sure of myself. And when I'm around somebody who's really sure of themselves, it almost makes me more sure of myself.
It makes
if
you
that
feel
makes
more
sense.
comfortable.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, this person
Yeah.
is fully just being themselves. They're just crushing it. Like, why can't I do that? So it's like, it opens my brain up to like, why not me? And I feel like I see that in a lot of people that like I'll follow online or, you know, friends that I have or whatever. So it's important, I think, to acknowledge differences in others and learn from that. And I feel like that's what we've done a lot in our relationship. But something that's really interesting. So we talked about whatever. So what was at what time frame or what age was your aha moment into like when you knew you were different than others, or when you knew that like, I'm going to just stick with what I feel confident in and not let this bullshit deter me from being that?
So 2 things happened, and I won't name names and I won't really name where this happened. But 2 things happened to me in my life where I realized, and I say this to you all the time, I'm like, I don't like everybody and I don't expect everybody to like me because everybody's different. And this is like right up this podcast alley. I remember I was sitting in my boss's office, and I'm not going to say where or when, but the person asked me, like, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I said, I think I'm going to be a professional hunter. And the person laughed at me in my face. And that I was sitting in a business, the office of the company, it was basically an outdoor company. And I've worked at outdoor companies the whole time, basically. But they laughed at me. They laughed at me in my face. And I looked at the person and I said, this person is so small-minded, but is in a position of quote unquote leadership, that I realized I never wanted to be like that person. Like, it was then and there, it was like I learned that the person that I was interacting with literally had so much of a restriction on their own personality that they pushed it onto me. Mm-hmm. It was like they thought it was stupid because they thought it was unattainable.
Sure.
But it was, and what I was saying was, like I've told Carly, I would love to be able to produce like an outdoor show, like a YouTube show or whatever. Part of this is like when you go to see our other videos that I have on a different channel, like we go shed hunting and turkey hunting and stuff like that. And it's been something that I've wanted to do for a long time. But when I saw that, the look on that person's face, number one, I lost respect for that person immediately.
Yeah.
And it was like, it just opened up the door of like, there are so many people that are brainwashed into thinking that this is the way life is. And if you have a viewpoint or if you think a different way, you're dumb. Mm-hmm. I immediately realized, like, most people would let it crush them. It just pissed me off. And
like
I ended up leaving that job. Yeah. Basically, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to dedicate my life to this asshole. Yeah. Is basically what it was. The second time, so that got me thinking in my life of like, I need to look at my life as my life, not living for other people, but like, what can I do to make my life more enjoyable for me and my family and like, the outcome. So that was the first thing that caught my attention of like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. How am I spending my time? The second thing was, and this was more recent, and I will not name names or the company or whatever, but I flew to interview for a company for a position that I was fully qualified to do. And the person, one of the people that were going to be interviewing me, excuse me, this Coke has got me a little. One of the people that was going to be there, I was really highly excited to interview with because I had watched their content on social media for years. I had followed them at previous jobs. Mm-hmm. I was impressed with who they were. And that was a big reason why I wanted to go to that company and work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on it, I remember when I told Carly, I flew out, I did a morning interview with these people. And when I went, I told Carly, I'm like, hey, this person's going to be there. I'm excited about it. When I got there, I had an hour conversation with this person and 2 other people. And the person that I was highly excited to potentially work with sat there on their phone like this. And in the beginning of it said, hey, just a heads up. Sorry, I'm going to be on my phone a little bit. They rarely made eye contact during an hour conversation and just sat back like this.
That's so weird.
During my interview. And I had flown across the country to go talk with these people and given up multiple days. And it made me realize that what you see and what you believe is not always true.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started doing something about 3 years ago. I started unfollowing anyone that I felt had disrespected me or didn't carry the values that I have personally. And it wasn't because I was like, hey, I don't like you. What it was doing was trying to rid my thoughts of things that were not going to help me personally.
Sure.
Not to say that because these people are actually very similar to who I am,
mm-hmm.
like the things that I do in my life, but they don't carry the values and the vibes, the frequency of what I'm trying to attain. And I simply just deleted them out of my life. And some of the people I knew personally, some of the people I didn't know, but I looked up to. And that was one of those people that I looked up to and I thought they were like me, quote unquote.
Yeah. Meaning like
they lived the same similar type of lifestyle.
Yeah.
They had a position doing something that I thought I would like to do also. And in my mind, it was like, this is where my happiness is going to be. And what I found was that in thinking, like having this belief, right? I had this belief that if I joined this company and I worked with these people, that I would be happy. And then I met the person. He was a total asshole. Sorry, I just said he.
It kind of like level sets you a little bit.
It was eye-opening to the fact that I couldn't believe how big of an asshole it was. He was. I'm just going to say he. It was a he. I couldn't believe how arrogant the person was. And so what it started me thinking was, man, when you look at this, their lifestyle compared to mine, our careers compared to each other's, they were probably one step ahead of where I was, and I was trying to get where they were. And when you look at it on paper, I thought I was going to find happiness finding someone that I thought was just like me,
mm-hmm.
and it was total bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a letdown, and it made me realize that people, the way someone looks or the things that they do does not make them like you or different. It's like a soul thing. It's like a deep down thing that even if you try to cover it up, like even if you try to cover it up with, plaid shirts and camo, if you're a dick, like I can see right through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out the hard way that some of these people that I was looking up to were putting on a big show. And they were putting on a big show because they knew how to sell themselves in that space.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
And I realized that being different is not a bad thing because I am way different from that person.
Right.
I would never, ever. And I've been in positions where we've interviewed people. I've had people fly in. Like we've talked to people. I have
just a level of like human respect. And
it was like I would never take someone's time for granted like that.
Sure.
Or be disrespectful like that. And I've done it with a bunch of people. I've actually gone through and I have made the hard choices, like to quote unquote, like clean up my life, clean up my acquaintances.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just deleted people completely, like got rid of their cell phone numbers, no connection to social media. If you see me as like a suggested friend, you might know that I deleted you. That's not always true.
Marie Kondo's strategy is just get things that don't bring you joy out of your life.
Right.
So
yeah, and that's what I did. And so
that's fair.
Understanding those two things, when the first one I couldn't believe, sitting in an outdoor company
Yeah.
and then having somebody laugh about like wanting to be a professional hunter or have a show or like do that professionally. It was like, whoa. And then the second one was another one where, and I've said this to you, I believe that people, and this is not always true and it's not relevant for everyone, but I believe that people that take jobs and they're in a specialized field and they hate their job should get the fuck out of that job, because there is somebody else that wants that job that is highly motivated and dedicated to the full job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah, I can understand that.
that's not being, it's not relevant and it's not a realistic thing, because people need to make money and they need to be, you know, take care of families and stuff. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of people out there that are posing. They're fitting the mold to do what they need to do. And it makes a lot of things challenging. It sells a lot of people short, and it makes being different hard. Because when you are genuine, and I've had this happen a couple times, when you are genuine and you're the person that you are, and you go for something, like as an example, you go for a job or you go for a, an opportunity where you believe that what you're doing is in line with who you are.
Yeah.
And then when you get there, the people that are sitting in those chairs or the people that are in charge of what you thought was are posing or don't have any real passion about, like, or they just don't care about what they do.
Yeah.
It makes your individuality pointless because they don't see the value of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's challenging, because like when you talk about having kids, I want to tell my kids, like, be who you are. Like, you will find happiness in who you are and having perspective on the world through your lens. Right. But what makes it hard is that you have to have the right opportunities line up, and the people that can give you those opportunities need to be genuine, and they need to be who you think they are.
Right.
Because when they're not, it bites you in your ass.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's something I think that this pandemic and kind of what's going on right now, we were just talking last night about how this pandemic, or basically any type of crisis, really brings out a person, a group, a company's character for who they truly are.
yeah.
And, I would say not to everybody's fault that they're not struggling themselves, and they're going through hard things or stressful things. And, it really does, it really boils down to like who you are as a person on a very magnified level when you have to go through something really hard. I've been there. You've been there. Probably everybody we know that exists has been in that place.
For sure.
And, it's all kind of about perspective. When you go through something really shitty or really hard, that when you come out of it and you choose to have the perspective, like, I'm going to use this for good or for myself, for growth, or to do better, or to learn, or to help other people, you can take that approach, or you can take this is happening to me, I'm mad, the world sucks. And who hasn't been in both places?
Yeah.
It's easy to go in both places. But when the balance of those two things are too one-sided, that's where your life can start to spiral out of control or be bad, if you're constantly looking at everything sucks and everything's shitty. But if you're balancing out well, this sucks, but how can I gain knowledge out of this? Or how can I use this for my benefit? Or how can I help other people with the knowledge that I just gained going through something that sucked?
Yeah.
It's like this pandemic is a really hyper-focused way that is showing, basically bringing light to people, groups, companies, for like, how do people, like, characters who you are in the dark. I mean, that I've heard that before, where it's like, and I'm like, the first week that I went through this, my anxiety, which I have on a steady basis throughout the days, it was like peak, like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. I snapped at the kids easier. I was like irritated with you. I was pissed off at myself. It was like, it gets stressful. And it's like, when you go through something like that and you're not thinking about it, or you're not leveling yourself with like, okay, how can I bring this back to earth? Like, so for example, a lot of companies right now I've seen on, there's a lot of like things being shared on Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever. A lot of companies right now are really treating employees horribly. I mean, and not to say that it's their fault that they're going through this time where it's like, oh yeah, no, we've got everything figured out, even though the world's crumbling. We're good. Everybody just calm down. There are a lot of companies that really are going through hardships. There are a lot of people who were teetering on the edge of like, we're almost bankrupt or we're not doing great. And now we're really not doing great. So we have to take drastic measures. I mean, there's a lot of people who are in that position or companies.
I mean, there's a lot of people in do or die situations.
Absolutely.
Right now.
I mean, I can't remember what the percentage of like people living paycheck to paycheck, but it's it's a lot. People
that can't do that on their own paycheck.
Right. Exactly.
Now they're just completely screwed.
Exactly. And it's terrifying and it's scary and it really just, I don't know. So what's really interesting is, going through this experience. And something that's really important is I feel like, and this is kind of in line. Oh, sorry. This is kind of apologizing to my microphone. This is kind of in line with like being different or being not so caught up in, I have to do like, okay, this is coming from more of like a company perspective, like a professional perspective. Like, if every company is just trying to compete with another company and they're like, well, we have to do what this person is doing or we're going to fail or we have to like come up with this thing or we have to, be on the same level or we're not going to be seen as equal in like a consumer's eyes or whatever. Like if companies are just constantly trying to have their shareholders and their bottom line be met, but their employees are second rate or their customers are second rate or whatever it is, like when something like this hits the fan, that's when these companies are like, ooh, that model doesn't work out very well. That strategy is not working for us. And what's happening right now, and what's probably going to happen for months to come, is all these companies that are doing, their systems are upside down. People are going to be like, what the hell? Like the way that this company is treating me right now as an employee is like, what? Like
you find out really quickly if you're just a number or just somebody that, hits the bottom line.
Right.
Or if you're a needed individual.
Exactly. And
a valued person.
It's just under a magnifying glass now. Yeah. And I feel like authenticity and being true to yourself and having integrity is so important. And this just shows how much of like, we had a conversation last night too, where it's like, man, if you're trying to give yourself another opportunity in life or in the world, and you do anything other than just be yourself in that moment, or you're presenting yourself to somebody in a way that's not like, this is who I am, then you're constantly going to have to keep up that level of like, I'm not this person, I'm fake. And then that brings stress onto you, which then trickles down to like, all of a sudden you become not that person. And then everyone's like, wait a minute.
You're like, being a persona at that point.
Wait a minute. What's real and what's not? And dude, it's so easy to say this in theory and actually do it in real life because being yourself,
it's terrifying.
And being authentic requires boundaries. You have to tell people no. You have to stay true to yourself all the time.
It's not easy. There's nothing more uncomfortable than opening your mouth and being yourself and then realizing you're the only person in the room that feels that way.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It's weird.
I don't know how this just popped in my head, but when you were talking about how companies treat employees, I won't say where I was or who it was, but I remember when I had a job and I was working, I met a guy, I guess I can say a guy, who I sat down and had probably about a half-hour conversation in his office about the company culture. And this person was internally seen as like a up-and-comer, rising, like young, successful person. And I was talking and we, were chit-chatting a little bit and they started to give me like advice, like they're like, hey, if you want to do well, here you go. So I started listening and their advice was not like learn the company, figure out a way to make it better. It wasn't like that. It was, the way to the top. If you want to be seen as like a go-getter, try to be here 20 minutes early and make sure you're the last person to leave your office. They didn't say a damn thing about, hey, do good work or make your time count.
Yeah.
It was just visually be the last person here, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it was like, seriously?
That's tough.
Like when you have people that ingrain the culture of what you're doing professionally, like even in your family, like whatever. If you have friends that are filling your mind with things that they're trying to convince you are important,
mm-hmm.
You're wasting your damn time.
Yeah.
You're wasting precious time in your life that you are alive and you are not dead, where you could make an impact on people, where, like you said, it's like, it can be a terrifying thing to be yourself. Imagine the amount of people that if you were yourself, you would inspire to be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then down the road, they would do the same thing and help people in ways that you'll never understand.
Yeah.
But it's like when you are, and actually I think about, so I'll throw this out there. If anybody's watching this, when Carly and I worked at Cabela's, and I'll be proud to say this guy's name. We worked with a guy named Thad Holly, who sadly passed away too early. He was sick and did pass away. That dude had kahunas like no other. He was not an alpha male type guy. He was not overly good looking. He was not overly charming.
The typical standard.
He was what people aspired to be. He was always himself. And when we were at Cabela's at the corporate office, that dude walked into a room and he gained the respect of everybody.
That's awesome.
Like I don't even know what his position was. I have no idea. But everybody knew when Thad walked in that he was going to be fun. He was going to be himself. He was going to make the room a better place. And people respected him for it. Like nobody gave that dude any shit. His job was 100% secure and everybody loved him.
Yeah.
But do you know how much balls that takes to like truly just be yourself?
Takes a
like
lot
wear
of
Hawaiian shirts to an outdoor camo, like hunting, fishing, and the dude's walking around in flip flops and like Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
The dude had nuts.
Yeah.
And it's like when you look at people like that, there are people that tried to do that. But really what they're doing is they're trying to be someone they're not.
Where do you think the foundation of that comes from? Do you think it's trauma typically? Do you think it's like a lack?
Dude, if I knew, I'd be a rich person.
Well, no, but I mean,
I feel like
like psychologically there has to be, this is impossible, but if you could like study every person who skews more on the individual side rather than like I'm going to go with the flow side, there has to be some type of trend, data speaking. I would
put money on the fact that his parents or parent, whoever, guardian, fully embraced who he was from a young age.
I feel like who I know that is the people that I look up to who are like really, really, really themselves. And
I guess I won't say embraced. I will say, I bet you anything
like allowed
them to be who they were.
They didn't
put a roadblock and say you need to be something else.
Sure.
I would almost guarantee that.
So I feel like it's on two ends of the spectrum. I feel like you either had parents who were like 100%, and I could be way wrong, and I don't know.
There's probably so many variations.
So many things that determine this. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, I feel like from the people that I know, it was either like you're talking about having parents or guardians or people who were just like, I fully support whatever you do, 100%. Yep. And you could have one parent that does, one parent that doesn't, two parents that do, 0 parents that do. And it's like, I feel like having parents that are like, you do you 100%. We're behind you. Whatever it takes, whatever you want to do, we're there. We're golden. Like Taylor Swift is a great example. she's not musically inclined to, I mean, she's good at songwriting from what I've understood. And I just watched like a weird Netflix special. She's a good songwriter. She puts lyrics together really well that appeals to a lot of different people.
Right.
And, you know, she's a typical classic, pretty country, you know, soft-spoken person who for the most part is, you know, she fits a mold. So if you will.
She did everything right to get to where she was.
Sure, for sure. She moved to Nashville. Her parents moved to Nashville for her. Like, to me, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, you either have parents who are like, we're going to move our whole life because we know how passionate you are about something. And then it's like, I've heard, you know, a lot of people on Tom Bilyeu's podcast, which is so cool, or his show, he'll ask them, you know, like, how did you get to where you are?
Right.
And you either get that, like, my parents were full blown supportive, or like, I literally lived on the streets and I had to figure it out. And
this
it's
is
like,
who I am.
either get this,
but
like,
either way,
huge dichotomy.
It's the same thing.
Exactly. It forces you to figure it out.
If you don't
without
have
having somebody tell you. Yeah.
Right. It's the exact same. It's like the opposite in terms of support.
Right.
Like, one way you are fully supported, the other way you have no support.
You have to figure it out or you'll die.
The common denominator of both of those are you are being yourself and nobody's telling you that you can't.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And it comes down, like, nobody is saying, hey, you're different, change.
Right.
They're just saying, you're just like, hey, you're you.
Yeah.
Like, and you just said the thing about Taylor Swift, and I watched part of that too with you. The most interesting thing is now, and I remember when Taylor Swift came out, she was the definition of, like, this is what Nashville wants for country. And then she switched over and started doing pop, and she's like, oh, she can figure this one out.
Yeah.
And she did it for so long that she was like, it was boring.
Yeah.
She's just constantly so good at fitting what people want.
She won so many awards.
But when we were watching that, personally, she was in so much, like, mental torment from not being able to be herself and speak her mind, that it was like she had everything. Mm-hmm. She's like the top of her game, and she's still pissed about, like, I can't be myself. And it's an interesting thing because it happens to everybody. I mean, you could be a billionaire like Taylor Swift or whatever she's worth, or you could be somebody that, like, lives paycheck to paycheck, and it's challenging because you want your life to go well. Like, you want people to look at you and you want them to respect what you say and what you do, and you want the outcome of your actions to be positive. Mm-hmm. And there's just so much that goes into it. Like, there's so many scenarios that, like, if I say this, you know, is the timing correct? Like, am I around the people where when I say this, it's going to blow up for me and be great?
Right.
Or are people just going to reject me and I'm going to feel unwanted for the next decade?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, there's just a lot that goes into it. And there's no guarantee that being yourself will be good for you. Mm-hmm. But it's like, at the end of the day, would you rather live your life, or, like, have your kids live their lives, or, you know, encourage your friends to live a life that's just fake? Mm-hmm. You know, because I've heard people say, like, the world needs more you. And basically what people are saying is, like, stop being just like everybody else. And, like, when you talk about going to college, you're sitting in a room with 1,000 other people that are trying to be just like you. And it's like, it's no wonder why most people that blow up, like Kanye West, his first album was like College Dropout. Mm-hmm. It's because he figured out, like, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm wasting my time. Everybody's trying to do what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And it was like, you know, like, for us, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere, but at least I know I'm sitting here being myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, all else fails, at least my kids can look back and be like, hey, that was my dad speaking his mind 40 years ago or whatever.
Right.
You know, and it's just a challenging thing. I could sit here and talk about this literally all day.
I know. We could do another one of these too. Just talk. I like the conversational.
I would like to hear somebody else's viewpoint. I think we should get somebody on the phone, and hear about what they think. Mm-hmm. You know, because there's, like, everybody's different, and that's what, like I said, my viewpoint this year and with this pandemic and, like, you know, basically being trapped in a house with you and the kids.
What, you're bored in the house and we're in the house bored?
Yeah. It's like, you can do your best to try to make people say things and act the way that you want them to. But in the long run, you're just better off accepting who people are. And, if you don't like it and you can't be around it, don't be around it. If you accept it and you like it, just embrace it.
There's a moment of peace when you hit a point where you almost let go or forget. I guess biblically speaking, forgiveness is like the word that gets tossed around. But it's almost like when you and the Sadhguru guy talked about when you let go of not having all of the pieces to the puzzle.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. The analogy that he made was he was like, a lot of us have 2 or 3 pieces of a puzzle and we can put them together and we get we're exuberant that we can put together these couple pieces that fit.
Yeah.
But it's a 1,000,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what the other pieces are, but yet you find this I made a picture. I did I have 5 pieces and look, it looks like something.
Yeah. You feel accomplished with something so small.
If you really take a step back and you think about how much you don't know, how much we as a race don't know, how much uncertainty there really is in the world. This is a great example. Everybody's living their lives like everything's fine. And then all of a sudden you get stuck in your house and you can't go anywhere because nobody knows. Nobody knows the answers. We can only speculate. We can only use the small amounts of data that we have to formulate any kind of security or measures to protect ourselves. And it's once you really think and you accept that, because it's scary. I mean, it is scary to think that the pieces that I have of my puzzle are nothing. And that, I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's you're a speck in the universe. And it's the second you start to think that you're not is where it gets almost not dangerous, but it's
a false
detrimental
sense of security.
Yes. And if you can be more open to other ideas and people and things and beliefs and whatever, you become more whole. I mean, that's what I really, really latched on to that. When I listened to that, I was and it really makes you just think. It makes you think so deeply and hard about wow, that's a really good point. I'm trying to fit myself in a box or fit other people in a box all the time. And all that's doing is just you're shutting yourself out from being yourself and being different and being okay with that. And it's I don't know, it's hard.
I agree completely with that idea of understanding that we don't know. Everybody thinks they're smart, but in the grand scheme of things, nobody knows shit.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's really what it is life is short and it's fragile, and you have this sense of security that is based on nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is. And this pandemic is just opened everyone's eyes to understanding that you need to be grateful for what you have. You need to take advantage of the time that you have and stop coming up with excuses for all these things that you say you can't do. And so one thing before we wrap, how long have we been talking? I feel like we've been going on forever.
Hour and a half.
Yeah, so we got to wrap it up. Okay. The one thing that I want to say is, that Sadhguru, I don't know how to say his name.
It's Sadhguru.
If you search Sadhguru or Sadhguru.
Sadhguru, yeah.
Sadhguru.
I think that's how he says
He's an Indian guy, and he is, dude, his content.
I don't know what his title is or what he is. I know he has a school.
It's good. Just look him up. It's Sadhguru. Yeah, you'll find him.
He's a cool guy.
He has a lot of good stuff. Tom Bilyeu with Impact Theory, the podcast or show, or whatever you want to call it, has a lot of eye-opening, interesting content that I would agree. I highly recommend it. It's really good stuff. Go find it. And I'll bring up a book that I read a few years ago. I used to drive back and forth to my last career position, and I listened to a lot of audiobooks, and one of them that was really eye-opening for me was Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Mm-hmm. And basically what it means is cut through the bullshit go to what you're doing and why you're doing it, and basically analyze everything that you're doing in your life. Be honest and real. Come up with why you're really doing it, or if you're not doing it, for a why, and come up with a why for what you want to do in your life and implement it.
Yeah.
I listened to that thing and it was like, fuck. Like, I am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, my why, my quote unquote why, is so screwed up.
Well, and he said a lot of times too, it's like if you look at almost like a target, like an outer circle and an inner circle, so many companies and people start with what they want to do, not why they want to do it. And it's like flip-flopped. It's like an inversion of how it should start.
They start with how, right? Because
how or what,
people get it backwards and they do, how are we going to do this? And then what is it that we're going to do it?
Yeah.
And then why is the last thing?
Right.
And Simon's way of, I could listen to Simon Sinek talk all day. So cool. He's cool. But his is reversed. And it says, like, whatever you do, the heart of it is why you do it. Mm-hmm. And then that leads to the what, like what you're going to do because of that. And then the last thing, the least important thing, is how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I have tried to come up with that for my life, and it's been a challenge because it's required me to reprogram how I think, and it's not gone overly well because it's a ripple effect of hard. Like it goes against everything you're taught. So if you're looking for a good book, and nobody out there is going to be like, oh, we don't have time because everybody's stuck in their house and they're not doing anything, get the audiobook. I think Simon himself reads it. It's like we get it on Audible. Go do it. It's like $10. It probably will change your life.
It's awesome. Yeah, I agree.
So I would highly recommend.
If you order it and it comes to your porch, leave it outside for like a day.
Yeah, apparently just wipe it with a Lysol wipe.
What is that?
And just burn the box.
That's so weird.
Or whatever it comes in. I'm going to wrap this up because we could keep going and going and going. I appreciate your time.
Same.
Because I love you with all my heart. I do. You're my best friend. And sometimes I hate your guts.
Oh, and there it is. Because
we're
both.
different.
Yeah.
We're different.
We're different.
But we are a team.
Yeah.
And we're going to figure it out. And anybody out there that's going through rough patches or even on the really good days, just understand that nobody is just like you. Yeah. But you're better off with your soulmate.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Right?
It's really hard to do
Nobody's like you.
It's easy.
It's easier to do life with somebody that you love.
Easier to do life with somebody you love. And it's real hard to overcome that thought sometimes of like, the way that I want to do it is the way that I want to do it.
Keep your eyes on the prize and don't be a dick. Accept people for who they are, and it'll make your life easier.
I saw a meme that, agreed. I saw a meme that said, during quarantine, my wife and I are playing, this is how you should do it, but there are no winners. And that's a really good, funny thing.
I keep scoring my mind. Okay, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I am tired, and Carly made me our cocktail tonight, and I think she put about 5 times as much booze in it as she normally does.
It was a shot and a half.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. We literally, the only time we ever drink alcohol is when we do this.
Which is like once a week.
Okay. If you made it all the way through, thanks so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button.
Yeah.
If we don't get to 30 by the end of April of this year, I'm going to start calling you individually on the phone and making sure that you subscribe.
Maybe we should offer an incentive. What's the incentive?
No, just out of love.
You know what the incentive is? Content.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because you know what? If you don't subscribe, we just are going to keep doing this for free.
Who am I kidding?
Yeah, it's fine.
We're going to do it even if we don't get subscribers.
We really are. Don't tell them.
But for real, I challenge you. If you are watching this and you're part of our family and you don't know how to do it, it's not an excuse. Figure out, leave us a comment.
How to subscribe to a YouTube.
No, not that. What? Leave us a comment and tell us what you want to hear on a podcast.
Yeah.
Or if you want to be a part of our podcast, leave us a comment or text us.
How fun would it be to just have our family members call in and talk about it?
Fun.
Are you sure? Okay, I didn't think so. I think that would be really fun. I think we're going to try over the next maybe week or two. We're going to try to have somebody call in.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do that.
Someone. It's going to be...
I don't want to
crapshoot.
Yeah. So we've got,
left it
we've got
open-ended.
2 people,
Yeah.
and one of them, I'm hoping they agree to do it because they have a really cool story that everybody's going to love.
Yeah.
So,
Or poop their pants about.
yeah, until then, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button. And if you do, hit the notification, and we'll do our best to get some podcasts out and keep this thing rolling.
Yeah.
So if you take anything from this,
It's okay to be different.
yeah, go with it. Just be different, accept others for being different, and carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.